everything in this match is going to matter, right? From the mulligan to the sequence of lands to, it's just everything matters here. And as we start here, oh boy, looks like not great. One of our players is on a mulligan and then keeping a pretty pretty questionable 6.
That is,
looks like Keganfall is on 5 lands and a Starnheim Unleashed. Admittedly, one of them or a couple of them can be used as spells, but
I was kind of questioning, John, if Keganfall was maybe playing, Angel Tribal, because Starnheim Unleashed and Embrace Gold in their hand kind of gave me some ideas. But hopefully, with this winning announcement, they can break that spell and get in on the board here. Maybe try to leverage that they are on the play. And yeah, I mean, they did have a pretty questionable looking key, but now it's starting to look decent. You have this announcement coming down probably, and then next turn we can do like a companion plus maybe another cheap spell feed or something. And yeah, I don't think this game is already done. There's definitely a lot more to be played, and I think this announcement might have been a key part for unfortunately it is removed here.
Agreed. And it is notable, though. One of my critiques of Starnheim Unleashed, and for the record, I do think it's a cool card. And I think it's a fun card. I think it's a good card. But one of my critiques of Starnheim Unleashed is it can be slow, because you almost always want to cast it for its foretold cost. And when that happens, you can't cast it in the same turn, even if you had 15 mana down.
Right.
You've got to wait till future turns to do it. So the fact that it's foretold now means at some point later on in the game, you are ready for one of those breakout turns, like you had mentioned in previous match, right? That they often come down to.
Yeah, the Starnheim is super cool because it's like it's a really interesting top deck because it doesn't do really much right away. Like you can make a 4/4 angel, which is fine for 4 mana, but like let's get 50 mana. It's not a super exciting top deck because you have to foretell it and then still wait a turn. And if you're like already gonna be dying on that turn, it doesn't save you. But if you can foretell it on turn 2 or 3, like happened here, I think the 5 mana casting cost is one of the best ones because for 5 mana to get 2/4/4 flying angels, that can be a huge swing, especially on turn 5. That's what happened here, and it looked really good and forced to be traded for half the card with the Vanishing Verse there.
Agreed.
And we still have an angel behind, right, John? We're just still gonna do some pretty good attacking here, I suppose.
Well, I agree, and see that's like you point out a half a card for Vanishing Verse is one of the best cards in the deck, right? In this matchup where there's going to be lots of planeswalkers you need to handle, things like that. The fact that you're trading for half of it on this 4/4 is just very, very powerful. I also want to point out, darn it, that it is a Serra Angel. That's a 5-mana creature from a very, very long time ago. Admittedly, maybe Serra Angel hasn't been played at the Pro Tour in a bit, but darn it, it's worth a good amount of mana. So the fact that you get to have your opponent spend a premium removal spell to remove half of it and leave behind something that's essentially worth 5 mana means that also has to be answered. And we see here, admittedly, they traded a land for it, which is, whatever, but that's still a card. That's a card. So that easy 2-for-1 when you were behind, when you were on the mulligan. Keganfall, remember they took the mulligan, kept a whole bunch of lands. Okay, this is the kind of trade you need to make, and darn it, it's been being made. And Keganfall now with Sorin down has been able to continue ramping back up on the cards. As a matter of fact, now they appear to be at least at parity with cards, right?
Yeah, and I think one more important point on this tournament is you're getting vigilance right from it, and we've seen how big vigilance can be against the Emperor. There's 2 of them in the Tox's hand on the top, so that's going to be absolutely huge if it gets played next turn. That we're looking at 1, 2, 3. If we wait a turn, and potentially even 4 angels, and those are going to be super hard to beat for Tox if they don't draw a sweeper, because there's not a single way to remove a single angel, John, right now in Tox's hand. They literally cannot right now remove a single angel from the game unless they draw more removals. But like killing them one by one is a dubious plan, so you're really hoping for a sweeper from Tox's side if you have those.
Agreed. And here we are, Takanuma. I,
That's cheeky. Okay, companion back to hand.
a bit, a bit. But remember, folks, I was over here whining about the fact that they kept all these. Oh, folks, this feels like one of
Oh,
those greatness at any cost moments. Uh, for those of you who have played with Dark Confidant, possibly in Modern
yeah,
or whatever,
yeah.
there are plenty of times where the card feels insane, where you're flipping a land and you're just saying, man, this ain't fair. I'm just beating up on my opponent. You know, you feel like apologizing to your opponent because you're just getting them. There are other times, though,
5 life.
when you're,
That's a lot of life.
yeah, that's true.
I mean, they're still on 8. I don't think that's necessarily dangerous to be at, but it is, going down to single digits is always a little bit, like there's a psychological switch. Like when you're at 10, you're like, oh, I have so much life. 9, okay. Now it's getting a little bit dicey at this point. So, yeah. And John, here, looking at the Soren, -7 is online too, which is 13 damage anywhere, including the face.
Correct. And and again, we talked about that Starnheim Unleashed and how it's making things awkward. Keganfall knows. There's, there's no I wonder what that card is feeling. Uh,
Yeah.
like, or I'm sorry, Toxman knows like that is absolutely no Starnheim Unleashed, but it's still going to hang out there. That's at least 3 tokens, possibly a fourth if there's an untapped land that comes out, that are all 4/4 flying angels. And so that alone is very threatening. But as you point out, holy crud, all these menacing spiders plus a Sorinol,
I wonder
we're
if
looking at,
is this just lethal?
I think it is, right? I
Block?
think,
Yeah. They can't block the. Oh, they can make a 1/1 with the Bank
okay,
Buster.
with
Does
the
that save
Bank
us?
Buster, but then they
Because
still
then
take
we.
2 from Spirited Companions.
Yeah. It looks like this might
So
be just exactly lethal.
I think so. Of
Because
course,
we can. Yeah.
Keganfall may not go for it because there is a little bit of a blowout situation if Toxman is holding specifically a removal spell or something here, right? Um, but if they're holding specifically a removal spell, they don't need, or they don't get to make a 1/1. They just remove one of the 2/1s, and then it's still not that bad, right? Yeah. See, this is
I think you have
not.
to be double blocking the Spideys. I mean, it doesn't save you, but
Uh, yeah.
yeah. I guess this is the same, I guess.
Yep.
But yeah, we're just gonna activate
Exactly.
Sorin. This Sorin, John, this Sorin just made the whole game. It drew them 4, 5 cards or something, which basically unmulligan them, and then now it's gonna win the game with the ultimate.
And,
That was
and
the
I you raise a
yeah.
great point, Tomas. You raise a great point. Remember, folks, this was on the mulligan in the matchup where you're thinking, man, you really want every card to count. We were talking about how the mulligans all matter and the card advantage all matters and all that stuff. And boom, um, you know, even through the mulligan, Soren coming up big, even though you had to pay a whole mess of life. 8 is not 0.
You don't get to see a game being won by a Sorin ultimate every day, John, and this is really awesome to see it in the finals here. Um, it's kind of interesting because like if Soren is killing somebody, that means it's already drawn like 5 cards, so it's done a really good job until that point, and then just getting the cherry on top, just like one shot in your opponent. Really, really awesome to see for Keegan here, because it was looking like it might be a rough game for them because they were on the mulligan. The start wasn't quite amazing, but then there was a Starheim, 2 for Angels, and then from there on, they just never lifted their fruit from the panel here and drove it home. So post-board game, though, we did say that there was some small differences in the sideboards, and it's going to be interesting how these changed, John, because it was the same 60 going into game one, but now potentially could be quite distinct decks because if they have 15 different cards both and they put in 15 cards, well, we're looking at now 45 cards being the same. So potentially
Well,
quite a bit different on the game two here. Also, as we said before, maybe play and draw can be coming in as well, quite importantly here.
Agreed. And I think it is relevant that of the 60, 20 of each are lands, right? They're not boarding out any of those lands. So we're
Yeah.
actually talking about 40 cards, of difference,
Hmm.
because nobody really cares about your mirror match on lands, right? So yeah, as you say, there are 15 card sideboards. Even if just each player changes 5 or 8, suddenly the decks don't look similar at all. As you point out, they could change as many as 15, and likely they will. At least some of the players appears to be changing as many as like 10 or more, and then
Mm.
suddenly they really do look very, very different here. And for the record, I think this is one of the great things about best of 3 and tournament magic. Like I say, I play a lot of best of 1, and I know there's a lot of people who maybe don't care for the format, but I do, because it's kind of fun. You get some matches in, just some quick stuff. But this is so skill testing, particularly when you end up in the mirror. And not only do you have to play well, not only you have to build your deck well, but now you have to sideboard well, and then you have to execute well. You have to mulligan well, right? Do you keep a 4-lander? I mean, yeah, you know do you keep a 2-lander, right? All of these decisions matter. And when you're in the mirror, there's just not a lot of room for error. Your chances of winning in the mirror are roughly 50% until you start making all these other decisions, and each one of these decisions can change the win percentage by even a couple of percentage points, but it all adds up, right? um and it
Yeah.
definitely, makes it exciting.
Yeah. This is going to be an interesting game, John, because I looked at both of the starting hands and they both look very serviceable. So it doesn't quite seem like either player will completely run out of the game, at least in the early stages here. We do see the potential to kill the Aspirin here, which probably will be taken because, yeah, that is looking quite threatening for Keegan here, I think. And then, one player has a Doggo and a Raiden, the other one looking at a. Well, this would be a pretty
Duress and
sad
welcoming
duress
vampire.
here. Yeah, if they do go, kind of saved by the vampire here, because if they went for the duress, there'd be a swing and a miss, as we say in the business.
Yep. So do you just fire off the Rydane, or
I think so. It's not. It's potentially not the most impactful at this point, but it does stop like a Wandering Emperor coming down or a Lolth next turn if it doesn't get killed, and it is the most mana efficient. So okay,
of course, folks, for those of you who are curious there, what was that attack all about? They're just going to bounce off each other. No, no, no. Remember, that Iganjo Seed of the Empire is also a potential spell, right? So,
it's also revealed,
Taxman,
right, John?
yeah,
Which is
Keganfall
important
knew
for
about
both
it. And
players. Yeah.
yeah, so they were, Taxman, I think, doing the
Hmm.
right thing here, putting him to the test. Do you remember this card and all that, right? But uh, it's relevant that now you kind of get these free attacks, and your opponent really doesn't. And definitely one of those small advantages that is very correct to take, I think.
Yeah, and it's super cool, John, because it was also revealed. So like there could also be a point to where Keegan Fall says, "I know that you know that I know, but I might just be okay trading this right in for the Eganjo. Maybe in this game, I just would like you to have one fewer land, and I don't care about this rating. Maybe I have another one in my hand which you don't know about." So there's a lot of back and forth with information being shared between the players.
Yeah. And it
Alrighty,
is
we do have a
true that
lull here.
sooner or later, like, you're going to have to turn a creature sideways. So,
Yeah.
that Iganjo is either going to be a land drop, or it's going to come out of your hand one way or another. So, at what point does the bluff get called, or at what point do you actually just bite the bullet and get the card out of their hand, whatever? Um, oh, now, folks,
Taking
keep in
the
mind, non-land, right? So you're
okay.
not going to be able to get that Iganjo. So the mind games are still going on, but that is very, very relevant, because now Keganfall does kind of know that Rydane can go away. You're not really giving up much.
Well, the thing is, if the Renin dies here, then a potential top deck Lolth could be somewhat interesting. If it's still on the battlefield, a top deck Lolth currently would not be castable. So I can see why Keganfall wants to still protect it. And John,
Mm.
we have seen a lot of mirrors today. We've seen a lot of Ors of cards being played, but every time I look at these games, Lolth is usually one of the biggest different makers when it comes on the battlefield, because the creatures are relevant, the reach is very relevant, the menace is very relevant, and then you still get left behind with this Lolth, which is drawing your cards every turn. So like it puts your opponent really to the test. Like, can you deal with both two creatures and a planeswalker ideally as soon as possible? And here we see Talks not being able to deal with either of those two aspects, and currently that seems like Keganfall is pulling quite far ahead here at this point, because now it's been a second turn of Lolth, and looks like there might be a third turn of Lolth, and it doesn't take many turns of Lolth, John, before it's like, okay, well, this game is over now.
For real. And it definitely does, like, it's looking kind of that way. And here, Keganfall really putting him to the test. Are you willing to use that Iganjo? And at this point, Toxman has remained unwilling. But keep in mind, this is the finals, and this is an elimination match. If Keganfall brings home the win, go home. That's it. Right? So
Yeah.
Toxman needs the deck to come through. Folks, at some point, there's a lot you can do with Magic cards, but you have to draw them. So here, Toxman does get a Spirited Companion, looking to get that onto the board for free with the Restoration of Ganjo.
Ooh, very cool. Draw two. Don't mind if I do.
For sure. Oh boy, but sure enough, that Rydane coming
Now
in
we
clutch.
might block now. I think I'm blocking now if I'm Keegan. Yeah, I like this. I don't care at this point too much about the Raiden, and if they want to use the Again, just sure, but it's very likely that if they do have an expensive card like the Maria's Call, they won't have mana for at least this turn if they already have to pay 3 for the Ganjo. So yeah, I think that's a good trade at this point for just getting. You have to get rid of the Ganjo at some point, right, John? You just at some point it's gonna be used.
Yep, I absolutely agree.
Oof,
And
oof.
that's, oh my goodness.
It's bye bye for Mr. Angel.
Ay, ay, ay.
The problem is we even have the verse, John, for the vampire, which was like the last sliver of hope for Tugs, I would say. Maybe we can,
Now,
put together some more dogs and draw two and more cards. But I think if we kill this vampire, it's looking really grim for Tugs.
oh my goodness. See, I was thinking there's interesting decisions here because I feel like there is a case to be made. Maybe we just fire up the Hive, right? Menace and a couple of Menace 2/1s. Forget the board, forget our life total, forget all that stuff. We're on board and we're coming at your face. But then, sure enough, Welcoming Vampire comes off the top to just say, forget your meaningful decisions. we're coming in hot and just not going to ever give Toxman an opportunity to come back in this game. And man, oh man, this is brutal.
I'm not sure if I'm in love with keeping the dog back. Like, worst case scenario, they kill your lol, but at this point, like, I think just driving the damage is probably what you want to do. And it's looking pretty unlikely that they would be even able to get through the vampire and then muster up 2 extra damage for the lol, but it's just 1 damage, probably won't be that big of an issue.
Yeah, I mean, I guess presumably Keganfall's opinion was 2/1 menace, 2/1 menace, 3/3 menace. So I've got 7 menacing damage and then a flying Welcoming Vampire. So like this turn, if you choose to block the 3/3, I've got 7 with Welcoming, 2 Spiders, and a Spirited Companion. If you choose to try and spread out the blocks, you can't. They would have had to get a flyer or something.
Right, yeah. That might have been as well. And it's like this turn we're gonna probably see the doggo, which is gonna draw in 2 cards, right? Because we have this vampire, and we're already like pretty severely ahead on the board. So yeah,
this is lethal a dozen ways, I think. And
even the farewell, just to like insurance policy here. Love to see it.
Yeah.
And Maria's Cauldron has been doing a lot of work today, I have to say. this card has been maybe cast more times than actually played as a land. If I had to just like guess from the games we've seen, I think it might have been cast more than played as a land,
I
which
I
is
would
which is
agree.
not something you would
Admittedly, like there's
expect from a
one.
7 drop, right? The 7 drop, like with a Joy Disruption, it gets played pretty often because it's cheap, but with the Emeria Skull, it's still getting played at 7 mana. That has to be an amazing card, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I agree. Admittedly, it's pretty forgettable when it comes down as a land, and like so Toxman has one as a land right now, so it's easy to forget those times. But it is also relevant that it gets cast so often that, I mean, even if it's only being cast whatever 30% of the time, when it's put in your deck as this is almost always a land anyway. This is a buffer land or whatever. Like that's just crazy when you're getting 30% cast rate on your buffer. That's and I would absolutely agree. I think it's at least in this tournament has been well higher than 30%. I mean, it's probably a coin
Like,
flip.
imagine John, if it wasn't a land, it was just a spell. Like, how much would you have to pay for it? I think at least 6, right? Like, I think 5 mana would be too push because if you look at Starnheim, you have to foretell it first to get a rate of 5 mana for 2 angels, right? So it would be a 6 drop. So you're only paying one extra for that. So really cool card. Unfortunately for Togs here, it looks like the Carvantage was just a little bit too much on the side of Keegan. So eventually, even though they were fighting valiantly, Keegan just drawing so many cards and really punishing Togs for not killing the Loth earlier and leaving on the board. And now that is going to be 2-0 for Keegan, and that's going to be them taking down the whole tournament, John. Amazing stuff, and congratulations to Keegan.